My fiancé was living with another woman, and I had no clue. I had always believed that Jason was my perfect match. We met in college, bonded over our love for books and late-night coffee runs, and after 5 years of dating, he proposed on a quiet beach in the moonlight. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. But dreams can shatter. It all started with small things: missed calls, vague explanations, and weekends where he was suddenly too busy with work. Jason was a lawyer, and I knew his job was demanding, but something felt off. Then, one evening, as I scrolled through my phone in bed, a message from an unknown number appeared. "You deserve to know the truth about Jason." I stared at it, my heart pounding. A scam? A mistake? Before I could reply, another message followed. "He's been living with another woman. 2 years. Ask him about Lillian." Lillian? A cold chill ran down my spine. I gripped my phone, debating whether to confront Jason immediately or investigate first. The logical part of me said to wait. The emotional part wanted to storm into his apartment and demand the truth. But then, I realized, I had never even seen his place. Whenever I visited, it was always a hotel or my apartment. He had excuses. "It's under renovation. My place is a mess. It's closer to your work." I had never questioned it, until now. That night, I made a decision. I was going to his apartment, no matter what. I barely slept that night. My mind kept racing with possibilities. Was this a cruel joke? A misunderstanding? Or was Jason really hiding something? By morning, my decision was made. I was going to his apartment. Jason had always been secretive about his place, and now I knew why. With my heart pounding, I typed his address into my GPS. It wasn't hard to find. It was in a quiet, upscale neighborhood, the kind where people sip wine on their balconies and pretend they don't have secrets. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, gathering my thoughts. What was I even hoping to find? Proof? A confrontation? My hands were trembling as I stepped out of the car and approached the building. The entrance required a code. Of course, Jason had never given me one. I was about to turn away when an older woman exited with her dog. I slipped inside before the door shut behind her. Apartment 4B. I stood outside his door, my heart hammering. My fingers curled into a fist, but before I could knock, voices drifted through the door. A woman's voice. "Lillian?" A lump formed in my throat. I reached for the doorknob on impulse, and to my shock, it turned. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open just a crack. The living room was cozy, decorated with warm colors, soft lighting, and a woman's shoes by the door. My pulse roared in my ears as I stepped inside. Then I saw them. Jason sat on the couch, laughing. Next to him was a woman with dark hair tied in a messy bun, wearing one of his shirts. She held a coffee cup, smiling at him like they had done this 1,000 times before. And then she saw me. Her smile vanished. Jason turned to follow her gaze. His face drained of color. "Ava," he breathed. My world crumbled around me. For a moment, time stood still. Jason and the woman, Lillian, I assumed, stared at me, frozen in shock. My breath came in short, shaky bursts as I tried to process what I was seeing. The man I was supposed to marry. Sitting comfortably in a home I had never been inside. With another woman. I took a step forward. "Well?" My voice trembled, but I held my ground. "Aren't you going to explain?" Jason shot up from the couch. "Ava, this isn't what it looks like." I let out a bitter laugh. "Really?" "Because it looks exactly like what that text said it was." I turned to Lillian, who had placed her coffee cup down, her expression unreadable. "How long have you two been together?" She hesitated before answering. 2 years. My stomach twisted. 2 years. That meant while Jason was proposing to me, whispering promises of a future together, he was already living a double life. I looked at him in disgust. "So, what was I? Your side project?" Jason ran a hand through his hair, his face a mask of guilt and desperation. It wasn't like that, Ava. I love you. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. I scoffed. Oh, so you were waiting for the right moment to tell your fiancé that you've been living with another woman? Lillian crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. Fiancé? Jason turned to her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You didn't tell her? I asked, my voice rising. Oh, this just keeps getting better. Lillian's face hardened and she stood up, stepping between us. You need to leave, she said to Jason. Jason blinked. What? You lied to me, she snapped. For 2 years, I thought we were building something real. But you were engaged to her? How much more were you going to lie about? Jason reached for her, but she jerked away. Lillian, please, get out, she said firmly. I folded my arms, watching with satisfaction as Lillian turned against him. Looks like you're out of options, Jason. His eyes darted between us, panic settling in. Ava, please, let's just talk. No, I said, my voice cold. We're done. I don't want to hear another word from you. For the first time since I stepped into that apartment, I felt powerful. Jason had spent years deceiving us both, but now? Now, he had nothing. As I walked toward the door, Lillian followed. Before I left, she looked at me and nodded. Thank you for showing up, she murmured. I nodded back. We both deserve to know the truth. And with that, I walked away, never looking back. I walked away that night feeling powerful, but power doesn't erase pain. The next few days were a blur of emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls and texts from Jason, each one more desperate than the last. I ignored them. But then, on the third day, I got a message from an unknown number. Lillian, I think you need to see this. Can we meet? Curiosity and caution battled in my mind. After everything, I wasn't sure I wanted to hear anything more about Jason. But something in me needed closure. So I agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Lillian looked different. Tired, maybe even broken. But there was a determination in her eyes that mirrored my own. She slid her phone across the table. I found these. I picked it up and scrolled through the screen. Messages, photos, emails. My blood ran cold. There weren't just 2 of us. There were 4. 4 different women. 4 different lives he had been living. One woman lived in another state, another across town. Each one believing they were his only one. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling as I placed the phone down. He's a psychopath. Lillian nodded. I thought I loved him. I thought he loved me. She let out a humorless laugh. I guess we all did. We sat there in silence, both absorbing the depth of his deception. Then an idea formed in my mind. A slow, vengeful smile spread across my lips. What if we make sure he never does this again? Lillian's eyes sparkled with understanding. I was hoping you'd say that. Lillian and I sat in that coffee shop for hours, piecing together Jason's web of lies. Each message, each photo, each excuse. His betrayal ran deeper than either of us had imagined. But we weren't just going to sit there and cry about it. No, we were going to burn his little empire of deception to the ground. Lillian had already tracked down 2 of them. Emily, a woman from Seattle he had been seeing for over a year, and Sophia, who lived just a few blocks away. We sent them both messages, asking them to meet. By the next evening, we were all sitting around a table in Lillian's apartment. 4 women connected by one man's lies. Emily shook her head in disgust. I uprooted my life for him. I was about to move here to be closer to him. Sophia clenched her jaw. He told me he was thinking about marriage. She turned to me. Guess I wasn't the only one. I scoffed. Not even close. We sat in silence for a moment before Emily leaned in, her expression sharp. So, what's the plan? I smiled. We're going to destroy him. We crafted the perfect revenge. Jason thrived on his reputation as a charming, successful lawyer. He was respected, trusted. We were about to change that. Using screenshots of messages, photos, and his tangled web of lies, we created a beautifully detailed post titled, "The Many Lives of Jason Carter, A Cautionary Tale." We posted it everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. We tagged his colleagues, his friends, his family. By the next morning, it had gone viral. And Jason? He was done. The aftermath was glorious. His office put him on leave to assess the situation. His family, who had adored him, publicly distanced themselves. His phone was bombarded with angry messages from people he had deceived. And the best part? He showed up at my door, looking like a broken man. "Ava, please," he begged. "You've ruined my life." I crossed my arms, meeting his desperate gaze with nothing but satisfaction. "No, Jason. You ruined your life. We just showed everyone who you really are." For the first time, he had nothing left to say. As he walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. Jason Carter had spent years living a double life. Now, he had no life at all. What do you think? A satisfying revenge, or do you want an alternate ending? Jason was ruined. His reputation was shattered. His career was in jeopardy, and every person in his life had seen him for the lying fraud he was. It should have been over. But something felt off. 2 weeks had passed since we exposed him. The messages and calls from Jason had finally stopped, and the other women and I had moved on, celebrating our victory. Then, one night, I came home to a dark apartment. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. A chill ran down my spine. I reached for my phone to turn on the flashlight when a notification popped up. "Unknown number? You think you won?" I froze. My fingers trembled as I typed back. "Who is this?" No response. Then a loud thud came from outside my apartment door. I spun around, my heart hammering. I wasn't imagining it. Someone was out there. I slowly stepped toward the peephole and peeked out. The hallway was empty, but taped to my door was a single piece of paper. I hesitated before opening the door, my pulse pounding in my ears. I ripped the paper off and unfolded it. "You took everything from me. Now it's my turn." My breath caught in my throat. Jason. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my mind racing. Had I pushed him too far? Was he out for revenge? One thing was certain. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. My hands trembled as I stared at the note. "You took everything from me. Now it's my turn." Jason had gone from a lying, cheating coward to something far more dangerous. I backed away from the door, my breath shaky. I needed to think. Needed to act. I grabbed my phone and called Lillian. She picked up on the first ring. "Jason's here," I whispered. "He left a note on my door." Silence. Then, "Are you sure it was him?" "Who else would it be?" My voice wavered. "Lillian, what if he's not done with us?" She exhaled sharply. "You need to get out of there." She was right. I couldn't stay here. I shoved my essentials, wallet, keys, and phone into a bag and bolted out of my apartment. My heart pounded as I scanned the hallway. It was empty. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I rushed down the stairs, not waiting for the elevator. By the time I reached the lobby, I was nearly running. The air outside was cold, sharp against my skin as I hurried to my car. I yanked the door open and slid inside, locking it behind me. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I tried to steady my breathing, but then a movement in my rearview mirror. I froze. A shadow moved near the edge of the parking lot. Someone was standing there, watching me. Jason? I didn't wait to find out. I started the engine and sped off. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Jason wasn't just angry. He was hunting me. I drove aimlessly through the city, my mind racing. Jason was out there, watching, waiting. I had humiliated him, exposed him for the liar he was, and now he wanted revenge. I wasn't going to let him win. I pulled into a 24-hour diner, my fingers shaking as I dialed Lillian's number again. "I think he's following me," I whispered, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror. No sign of him, but that didn't mean he wasn't lurking. "Come to my place," Lillian said. "You'll be safe here." I hesitated. Could I risk putting her in danger too? But I had no choice. I arrived at Lillian's apartment 15 minutes later. She was waiting for me outside, arms crossed, her face pale. "We need to end this," she said the moment I stepped out of the car. I nodded. "But how?" Lillian's jaw tightened. "We set a trap." The final confrontation. We didn't have to wait long. That night, Lillian posted on her social media, "I forgive you, Jason. Let's talk." It was bait, and he took it. An hour later, a reply came. "Where?" Lillian and I exchanged a look. I grabbed a kitchen knife and hid it in my bag. "Let's end this." We chose an abandoned construction site near the edge of the city. Open, isolated. No cameras, no witnesses. Jason arrived, stepping out of his car like he had nothing to fear. His hair was a mess, his suit wrinkled. He looked like a man unraveling. He spotted me immediately. "Ava," he said, his voice low. "You shouldn't be here." I stepped forward. "Neither should you." His jaw clenched. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me?" His voice shook with barely contained rage. "I lost everything. My job, my friends, my reputation." I held his gaze, my heart pounding. "You did that to yourself." He took a step closer. "I loved you, Ava." I laughed bitterly. "You don't get to say that. You never loved me. You loved lying. You loved control." Jason's face twisted into something ugly. "And now you think you've won? You think you can just walk away from this?" I saw the movement before I could react. His hand reaching into his coat. A flash of silver. A knife. Lillian gasped. I took a step back. But Jason never got the chance. A loud crack echoed through the night. Jason staggered, his eyes wide in shock, before crumbling to his knees. His weapon clattered to the ground. Behind him, Emily stood holding a gun, her hands shaking. She had been watching from the shadows all along. Jason gasped for air, his mouth opening like he wanted to say something, but no words came. He collapsed face first onto the ground, unmoving. Silence. Then, Lillian whispered, "Is he—" Emily swallowed hard. "He was coming after you." I exhaled shakily. It's over. And for the first time in weeks, I truly believed it. Jason's death was ruled self-defense. The evidence of his harassment and threats was undeniable. The police barely questioned us before closing the case. The nightmare was finally over. Lillian, Emily, Sophia, and I kept in touch. We had bonded over something horrific, but we had survived. We had taken back our power. As for me, I moved on. Stronger, smarter, unbreakable. Jason had spent years living a double life. In the end, it cost him everything. And me? I walked away free.